The last few weeks had a sound. It was the sound of noise, of pressure, of urgency, the sound of revelations shattering structures, of decisions being forced, of a world spinning a little faster than our soul could keep up with. We ran, we reacted, we survived. And in that process, perhaps we forgot a fundamental truth, that our essence does not flourish in noise, but in the silence that comes after it. That silence has arrived. Today, the cosmic choreography changes its rhythm. The energy ceases to be thunder and becomes a soft melody. It is an invitation, not to action, but to appreciation, not to struggle, but to surrender. Today, the universe does not ask you to conquer, to prove, to decide. It asks only one thing of you: to slow down your thoughts and remember what is still beautiful. This is not a search for distraction. It is not about seeking beauty to escape from reality, but rather using it to anchor yourself more deeply in it. It is an act of remembering that even beneath the chaos and complexity, there is an order, a harmony, a grace that sustains everything. Finding beauty in a detail, in the way the light enters through the window, in the geometry of a leaf, in the cadence of a song, is an act of realignment. It is tuning your internal frequency to the frequency of creation itself. This video is a pause, a space to breathe, a meditation on the return to harmony, not as a destination to be reached, but as a choice to be made in each moment. To begin this journey, let's seal our intention with a mantra, a promise of presence. Use the comments below as a sacred space. Write the words that will serve as your guide for today. I do not react, I observe. The cycle of the last few weeks was noisy. It had the sound of grinding metal as old structures gave way under pressure. It had the sharp sound of revelations, the cacophony of decisions that needed to be made, the constant static of collective anxiety humming beneath it all. We were conditioned to live in that noise, to navigate it, to even romanticize it as a sign of a life lived intensely. We learned the art of resistance, the virtue of effort, the nobility of fighting against the tide. Our strength was measured by our ability to endure the noise, to keep moving forward despite it. Now, the cosmos falls silent, and this silence at first can be disconcerting. It is not an empty silence, one of absence. It is a fertile silence, like the stillness of a forest after a devastating storm, when the air is clean and every drop of water on the leaves seems to contain the entire world. Venus, the archetype of beauty, grace, and harmony, enters Libra, its home, its purest expression, and with it, it gives us a new sound. Or perhaps the absence of sound that allows us, for the first time in a long time, to hear the music that was always there, beneath everything, the sound of restored balance. It is the moment to stop fighting against the rhythm of time. We spent so much time trying to accelerate healing, to force growth, to push the river so it would reach the sea faster. That struggle, which we once called strength, now reveals itself for what it always was: exhaustion. The energy of Venus in Libra teaches us a new definition of power. Strength today is not in effort, but in surrender. It is not in doing, but in being. It is not in holding on tighter, but in letting go with more grace. Today, true strength is serenity. Think about it. Serenity is not passivity. Passivity is the resignation of one who has given up. Serenity is the calm power of one who trusts. It is the mastery of one who watches the storm pass, firmly anchored in their own center, knowing that it, like all things, is impermanent. It is the refusal to participate in the drama, to feed the chaos with your reaction. It is the conscious choice to align with peace, not because the problems have disappeared, but because you have chosen to be greater than your problems. This is the invitation to lay down the weapons you have grown accustomed to carrying, to allow your shoulders to relax, to let your breath find its natural rhythm instead of being dictated by the urgency of the world. The noise outside may continue for a while longer, but the storm within you has permission to end. And in this new inner silence, you will begin to notice something that the noise once muffled, the subtle beauty that was always waiting for you. Chaos has an insidious effect on our perception. It not only overwhelms us, it blinds us. Under the yoke of urgency and survival, the world loses its three-dimensionality and becomes a flat plane of tasks to be completed, of problems to be solved. Our vision becomes utilitarian. A tree ceases to be a silent witness of decades and becomes an obstacle on the sidewalk. Food ceases to be a source of pleasure and nourishment and becomes just fuel to keep going. The sky ceases to be a constantly changing canvas and becomes just the weather. Chaos steals beauty. Haste erases pleasure. We spend so much time looking at the map that we forget to appreciate the landscape. The entry of Venus into Libra is the antidote to this blindness. It is the universe gently taking us by the chin and saying, "Look up, look around. Remember." This energy gives us back the ability to appreciate, not to escape from our life, but to remember why we fight for it. It is not an invitation to escapism, but a call to enchantment. Beauty, when observed with presence, has a magical quality. It dissolves time. It is impossible to truly appreciate a sunset while worrying about tomorrow's email. It is impossible to smell the perfume of a flower while lamenting a conversation from yesterday. Everything that is beautiful anchors you in the now, and the now is the only place where peace can be found. It is here that we need to confront the skeptic who lives within us, the pragmatic voice that has been trained to see the appreciation of beauty as something futile, a luxury for those with time to waste. How can I stop to look at a painting when I have bills to pay? It asks. How can I feel the pleasure of a melody when the world is in crisis? The answer that Venus in Libra offers us is that perhaps we have inverted the equation. Perhaps it is not peace that allows us to see beauty, but rather beauty that guides us back to peace. The beautiful is not vanity. It is the language of the soul when it is at peace. It is its native dialect. When we are in survival mode, we become fluent in the language of fear, of analysis, of strategy. Beauty seems like a foreign language. Today's invitation is to practice this forgotten language. It is to understand that aesthetics is not superficial. It is spiritual. Surrounding yourself with beauty, whether through art, nature, music, or simply tidying your space, is not an act of indulgence. It is an act of healing. It is a way of communicating to your nervous system in a non-verbal way that safety is possible, that harmony exists. Therefore, today allow yourself to be futile. Let what you call unproductive be exactly what brings you back to your center. Waste 5 minutes observing the patterns the clouds draw in the sky. Put on that song that gives you chills and do nothing else while you listen to it. Drink your tea from your favorite cup, not the first one you find. These are not small, insignificant acts. They are acts of rebellion against the tyranny of haste. They are declarations that your soul deserves to be nourished. By choosing the beautiful, you're not turning your back on the world. You are gathering the strength and clarity needed to meet it from a place of fullness and not of exhaustion. We have been taught to see harmony as a passive condition, a kind of prize that is granted to us when the circumstances of our life finally align. We wait for it as one waits for rain after a long drought, believing it to be an external event outside of our control. But the wisdom that the energy of Libra offers us today is one of the most active and empowering of all. Harmony is not something you find, it is something you choose. It is not a destination, it is a discipline. Libra, the archetype of balance, does not impose peace. It, moment by moment, chooses it. And today's invitation is simple, yet radical, to take on the power of being the curator of your own inner peace. Through the choices you make in the silence of your being. This choice manifests, firstly, in the decision not to react. Reaction is an echo of the past. It is an automatic program, a conditioned response that is triggered by an external stimulus. Someone says a word, and our old wound responds for us. A stressful situation occurs, and our nervous system goes into survival mode out of habit. Reaction is not a choice, it is a reflex. The choice of harmony is born in the sacred space between the stimulus and the response. It is the pause of a single breath. In that space, which may last only a second, lies all our freedom. It is the opportunity to observe the impulse to react, the anger, the fear, the need to defend oneself, and instead of being carried away by it, to choose a response that is aligned not with your wound, but with your wisdom. The second facet of this choice is that of not judging. Judgment is the greatest generator of internal noise that exists. Every time we label an experience as good or bad, every time we categorize a person as right or wrong, we create a dissonance, a separation within ourselves and with the world. Imbalance shouts, but harmony whispers. And you only hear it when you stop running, and especially when you stop shouting your own judgments. The Libran practice of harmony is that of observing, of witnessing life as it presents itself without the need to incessantly label it. It is allowing things to simply be. This neutrality is not indifference, it is a form of deep peace, the peace of one who no longer needs to be at war with reality. And finally, the choice not to accelerate. Haste is an act of distrust. It is the belief that if we do not force the pace, we will be left behind, we will miss something. It is a struggle against the natural flow of time. To choose harmony is to surrender to that flow, to trust that everything is happening in its own divine time. It is here that aesthetics and spirituality meet in such a beautiful way. Every aesthetic choice is also a spiritual choice. The way you arrange your space, the colors you choose to wear, the music you allow into your home. All of these are choices of harmony. They are ways of curating your environment so that it reflects the peace you wish to cultivate internally. And this leads us to the most practical of magics. You can transform the common into ritual just by the way you do it. The act of preparing a cup of tea, when done with haste and distraction, is mundane. But when you do it with presence, choosing the cup with care, feeling the warmth of the water, inhaling the aroma of the herbs, that same act becomes a meditation, a ritual of harmony. It is your choice that infuses the sacred into the profane. Today, choose harmony. Choose it in your thoughts, in your words, and above all, in the small rituals of your day. Venus, in her essence, is an artist, and her entry into Libra, the sign of aesthetics and balance, invites us to become the artists of our own lives. But the lesson she brings us today is one of the most subtle and profound. The most important art form we will ever master is not painting, music, or sculpture. It is the art of refining our own energy. We were taught to associate elegance with what is external. The clothes we wear, the way we decorate our homes, the grace of our movements. And while these things can be expressions of beauty, they are merely the reflection of an inner state. True elegance, Venus in Libra teaches us, is not in the clothes, but in the vibration. It is the quality of the energy we emit before we say a single word. It is the silent resonance that fills a space when we enter it. It is the coherence between our inner world and our outer behavior that creates a sense of effortless grace. This vibrational elegance manifests in the most subtle details of our existence. It begins with the quality of our thoughts. Think of your mental space as your most sacred studio. Is it filled with clutter, with judgments piled up in the corners, with critical voices echoing off the walls, with a ceaseless flow of worries passing through like a cold wind? Or is it a clean, well-lit space where there is room for silence, where thoughts are chosen with the care of a curator selecting pieces for an exhibition? The elegance of thought is not about thinking only positive thoughts, but about cultivating a mental space where compassion, curiosity, and beauty are allowed to reside. From there, it flows into the way we speak. Words are brushstrokes of energy that paint reality. A word spoken with haste and impatience, even if its intention is good, leaves a trail of jagged and anxious energy. A truth spoken with harshness may be factually correct, but energetically violent. To refine the energy of speech is to learn the art of the pause, to choose words that not only communicate an idea, but also convey a sense of calm and respect. It is to understand that sometimes the most elegant response is silence, the refusal to participate in a conversation that drains, that judges, that diminishes, and finally it manifests in how we respond. A reaction is energetically clumsy. It is a spasm, an unconscious reflex that makes us puppets of our triggers. A response, on the other hand, is the pinnacle of energetic elegance. It is born from presence, from choice. It is the act of feeling the wave of emotion rise, of observing it without being carried away by it, and of consciously choosing an action that is aligned with our intention of harmony. To respond instead of reacting is the difference between loudly tripping over an obstacle and moving around it with the grace of a dancer. How does one practice this art? The refinement of energy does not happen through complex rituals, but through continuous presence. It is a process of cleansing our energy field, not with incense, but with awareness. And the most practical way to do this is to become the meticulous curator of everything you consume, everything you allow into your system, through your eyes, your ears, your mind, and your heart, becomes the pigments with which you paint your inner landscape. Start with what you hear. The music you choose has the ability to alter your state in minutes. The cacophony of negative news, conversations full of complaints, all of this creates static in your field. Today, choose harmony, choose silence, choose melodies that uplift. Purify what enters through your ears. Then, look at what you see. Is your social media feed feeding you images of conflict, of comparison, of lack? Is the clutter in your physical space creating a corresponding clutter in your mind? Refining your visual diet is an act of power. Follow accounts that inspire beauty. Tidy a shelf in your home. Spend time looking at nature. Curate what enters through your eyes. And perhaps most importantly, refine what you consume, intellectually and emotionally. The news you read, the people you spend your time with, are they feeding your fear or nourishing your soul? Are they leaving you feeling drained or inspired? Today, the invitation is this: purify your internal aesthetics. Treat your inner world as the most precious work of art you will ever create. Because, in the end, the external world will always be a reflection of the beauty and harmony you first had the discipline to cultivate within. In our culture of instant gratification, the word pleasure has been hijacked. It has been reduced to a synonym for distraction, a quick antidote to the discomfort of boredom or pain. We feel a void, and fill it with infinite scrolling. We feel anxiety rising and numb it with the next episode of a series. We feel loneliness and soothe it with the dopamine of an online purchase. This is pleasure as escape. It is noisy, it is insatiable, and in the end, it leaves us emptier than before, because it was never designed to nourish us, only to numb us. There is a fine, almost invisible line between the pleasure that distracts us from life and the pleasure that connects us more deeply to it. Today, the universe, with the clarity of Venus in Libra, illuminates this line and gently tests what your brand of pleasure is. Today's energy does not judge our need for comfort, but it invites us to refine its source. The test is not a quiz with right or wrong answers, but a moment of honest self-observation. When you seek something that gives you pleasure, is your intention to switch off or to switch on? To switch off from your reality, from your feelings, from the present moment, or to switch on more deeply to the beauty that exists within that same reality? Pleasure as escape is a movement away from yourself. Conscious pleasure is a movement inward. The latter is the new frequency that Venus in Libra invites us to tune into. It is the discovery that the deepest and most sustainable pleasure comes not from extraordinary experiences, but from our ability to bring extraordinary attention to ordinary experiences. It is not about what you do, but about the quality of your presence while you do it. It is the difference between swallowing a meal while looking at a screen and savoring each bite, feeling gratitude for the earth that produced it. It is the difference between listening to music as background noise and sitting for 3 minutes to allow a single melody to fill you completely. It is the pleasure that demands nothing new, only that you be fully present with what already is. This is conscious pleasure, not an escape from reality, but an act of gratitude for it. It is the act of looking at your life with all its complexities, its challenges, and its imperfections, and still being able to say, even so, there is still beauty. It is an act of spiritual rebellion. It is finding perfection in your morning cup of coffee, in a conversation with a friend, in the feeling of the sun on your skin. It is to reclaim your ability to find joy, not as a reward for having achieved something, but as an innate right of your state of being. It is here that our definition of wealth begins to shift. We have been taught to measure abundance by what we accumulate, by what we possess. But the new abundance comes not from what one has, but from what one appreciates. You can be surrounded by luxury and feel completely poor if your ability to appreciate is dormant. And you can have very little, yet feel immensely rich if your presence transforms every small detail into a source of enchantment. The value is not in the object, but in your gaze. By practicing conscious pleasure, you are training your gaze to see the gold that exists everywhere. You are tuning your vibration to that of sufficiency, of fullness. And by the universal law of resonance, the universe will invariably bring you more experiences worthy of your refined and grateful attention. We have been conditioned to think of our spiritual journey as a profoundly individual, almost solitary act. A path walked in the silence of our meditation room, in the pages of our journal, in the recesses of our own consciousness, and in many respects, this is true. The work of refining our energy, of choosing harmony, of cultivating conscious pleasure, is work that only we can do for ourselves. However, the final and most expansive lesson that Venus's entry into Libra offers us is that our inner landscape is never truly separate from the outer landscape. What we do in the microcosm of our soul creates ripples in the macrocosm of the world. Every act of personal balance is inevitably a contribution to the global rebalancing. When Venus The archetype of harmony enters its sign of power, Libra. Its influence is not limited to the individual. It casts a wave of peacemaking potential over the collective field of consciousness. Look around you. The world is in a state of profound oscillation, of imbalance. We see the social tensions, the disputes, the judgments, a cacophony of shouted opinions, a polarization that turns every conversation into a battle, a static of collective anxiety that hums beneath the surface of daily life. Our instinctive reaction to this chaos is to feel small, powerless. What can I do? We ask ourselves. How can my inner peace, cultivated in the silence of my room, possibly affect the complex web of global events? The temptation is to try to fix the world out there. We want to argue, to protest, to fight, to force our vision of harmony onto others. But this is the logic of the old world. The logic of effort that we have already learned leads to exhaustion. Trying to impose peace while carrying war within oneself is an energetic contradiction. It is like trying to calm the waters of a lake by throwing more stones into it. The wisdom of Libra offers a different path, more subtle and infinitely more powerful. It tells us that the most effective way to calm the storm outside is to become the calm, still I at its center. And your role, your highest spiritual function today, is precisely this: to be the neutral point in the midst of the oscillation. To be a neutral point does not mean to be indifferent. It is not apathy. It is, on the contrary, an act of immense power and compassion. It is the ability to observe the chaos without being consumed by it. It is to feel the pain of the world without drowning in it. It is to listen to dissenting opinions without feeling the need to take a side or enter the battle. To be the neutral point is to become an anchor for the frequency of peace. Imagine yourself as a tuning fork. The world around you is vibrating at the dissonant frequency of fear, anger, and separation. If you allow yourself to be carried away by this energy, you too will begin to vibrate at that same frequency, contributing to the noise. But if, through the practices we have explored, the choice of beauty, of harmony, of refinement, you consciously tune yourself to the frequency of peace, something magical happens. You become a tuning fork, vibrating at a pure and stable note, and by a law of physics and metaphysics called resonance, your clear and coherent vibration begins to influence the field around you. The more chaotic frequencies, upon coming into contact with yours, are invited to rise, to align with your more harmonious note. You don't need to say anything. You don't need to do anything. Your simple presence, when anchored in peace, becomes an active healing force. That is why what you balance within yourself inevitably alters the field around you. Every time you choose to observe instead of react, you are subtracting 1 unit of chaos from the world. Every time you choose beauty over the ugliness of judgment, you are adding 1 unit of harmony. Every time you choose serenity over anxiety, you are weaving a golden thread into the collective tapestry. It may seem small, it may seem invisible, but these choices are the most potent form of activism there is. Today, a calm choice, made in the sanctuary of your own heart, changes the world more than 1,000 words shouted in a public square. This is the day to remember that harmony is not passivity, it is silent power. The universe is not asking for your perfection, it is asking for your coherence. The entry of Venus into Libra is the moment to recall that peace is not a destination, but a daily choice, a work of art that is sculpted with the delicacy of your attention. If this message helped you find your center again, anchor this piece, like this video, and share it with those who also need this silence. To seal your intention, declare in the comments, "I do not react, I observe. Don't forget to subscribe. Beauty is always waiting for us, and we will continue to learn how to see it together.